Hey folks, where were you Friday afternoon around 2:30, 3 o'clock? I was running into my car to get out of the rain. I'd gone to an appointment over in Troy, and as I was driving back to Coxsackie, it rained, sometimes heavily, all the way from Troy to Coxsackie. And I hung up my garage at Coxsackie for a minute or two, just because the rain was starting to let up. That was a lot of rain. Did you have it up here on Caro? Yeah, it was ripping, wasn't it? A little bit of rain yesterday, too, in the morning. And I hear we're up for a storm maybe after 2 o'clock today, so hey, what can I say? Storms have a way of coming up almost very suddenly, don't they? You don't quite know what's going on with that. And we see a little bit of that going on in our gospel today. In fact, having formerly been the pastor of our Catholic parish in Lake George, I know that when people go out in small boats in Lake George, they were very attentive to the weather. Because you get a little wind on Lake George, you get a lot of chop in the water. And small boats and chop don't go together very well. And we have this very same thing here. By the way, here's a quick thought. Next time you're reading in Mark's Gospel, one of the things they taught me when we were learning how to read Mark and Matthew and Luke, the synoptic Gospels, is that when you read about Jesus getting in a boat in Mark's Gospel, it means it's a transition point. We're going from one place in the Gospel to something new. And spoiler alert, you hear what something new is starting with next week's readings, okay? But aside from that, they're in this small boat, and this squall came up. No kidding. And being a small boat, they're taking on water because the waves are coming up over the sides, going over the gunwales and all that. And as it turns out, Jesus is just placidly asleep in the back of the boat. And the disciples, they're losing it because they know what life is like they're fishermen. They know what life is like in a small boat when it's storming. And they just very calmly say, "Teacher, do you not care that we are perishing?" That wasn't over the top, was it? And as it turned out, Jesus woke up. He calmed the waters. Then he calmed the disciples. And that might have been the harder of the things to do. He asked them, "Why are you terrified? Do you not yet have faith?" Now, we're in Mark's 4th chapter. And like I said, we're going to be changing in Mark's 5th chapter. The message is going to change a little bit. Things are going to get a little bit deeper. The disciples will have the chance to continue walking with Jesus, and they will see him. And let me just say this. Faith is many things, but a big component of faith is trust. And the disciples have to deepen their trust in Jesus, which will start happening in the 5th and 6th chapters. Okay? But having said that, for where they are right now, they're not ready yet. I mean, Jesus is going to give his life up on the cross. Do you think he's going to let them drown in the boat in the middle of the lake? I don't think so. We're not quite near the end of the story yet. Okay? But let's say go forward about, say, 2 millennia, give or take a few years for friends. The disciples were distracted. They're concerned, "Teacher, do you not care that we are perishing? Do you not care for us?" The disciples' focus is on the disciples. Our focus can be on ourselves too. And I'm not saying it to slap your hands, but just to say, things can distract us. Work, our families, the community. Things right in front of our eyes. And we might not always realize, hey, there's so much going on in the world around us. There's war, there's violence, there's difficult things going on. Some things far away, some things painfully close. There are people who are suffering. Think about this hot weather the last, say, 10 days, 2 weeks. Do we know people nearby who don't have good access to even a fan? Do we know people with health problems who are kind of sweating it out at home? Are we taking time to look in on them? School's out. Some families depend on those 2 meals a day at school for the kids. Are we attentive to their needs? Yeah. And then there are a lot of families who are experiencing difficulties with just depression or anxieties or substances. Driving around Greene County the other day, I heard an old song. "Hello, darkness, my old friend. I've come to speak to you again." Do we know people who are living in the midst of darkness? Closing in on them and their families? Rather than get caught in the sounds of silence, what do we say to bring the message of Jesus to help break their silence, break the darkness? We have had the chance to benefit from the experience of baptism, and for many of us, confirmation too. Gifts of the Spirit, gifts that we can take. And like I said, faith and trust go hand in hand. God entrusts us with all these gifts. What shall we do with them? What are we doing to show our love for God? Show our love for our neighbor. Jesus came to love everyone. Jesus came to love the world. What's our part in that? Something to think about as the disciples are learning how to trust Jesus more deeply, more profoundly. Where are we in the midst of this, and what can we do to help deepen that trust we have with the Lord? You know, there are storms that come up, blow us around a little, maybe shake our confidence. I mean, let's be fair. Maybe we're worried because, well, you know, maybe I'm talking to high school students who are here today. Maybe they, as far as you're concerned, they asked the wrong questions on the chemistry exam or the geometry exam. You were prepared for other things. For the young couples maybe who bought a home a few years ago for them and their family, you weren't prepared for the surprise the other family had for you in the closing meeting. Maybe you like playing a good game of ball. You know, it's full count. You didn't think the pitcher would throw a curveball in the outside corner, did you? Yeah, we get surprised, and sometimes it distracts us. What can we do to focus ourselves again on the Lord who's always there, come rain or come shine?